Kevin O'Sullivan didn't hold back when he dropped the most brutal assessment of Meghan Markle's current state that we've heard yet. And folks, when someone who's watched the royals for decades says a duchess is completely lost and desperately flailing like a dervish, you know things have gotten catastrophically bad in Montecito. The word relentless kept coming up, but not in the empowering way Meghan probably imagines herself. No. Kevin was talking about watching her relentlessly chopping vegetables in her Netflix show like some kind of deranged infomercial host who forgot what she was selling. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And apparently, that manic chopping energy has now infected every single aspect of her chaotic attempts to stay relevant. Her life right now is, according to insiders, an utter mess. She doesn't know what she's doing anymore, just lashing out in every direction, trying this venture, dumping that one, pivoting so fast she's practically spinning in circles. The woman who was supposed to modernize the monarchy is now frantically trying to break into high fashion after her jam empire crumbled faster than a stale scone. But here's where it gets truly mortifying. The Paris Fashion Week disaster wasn't just bad, it was historically humiliating. Sources reveal Meghan actually called up designers begging to attend their shows. The Balenciaga creative director himself confirmed she invited herself. Can you imagine the desperation? The woman who once walked red carpets as Hollywood royalty is now cold-calling fashion houses like a telemarketer, practically pleading for invitations nobody wanted to extend. And when she finally got her foot in the door, what happened? She showed up looking like, and I quote Kevin here, the Pope after a bad night on the tiles, draped in that bizarre ghost sheet outfit that had fashion insiders whispering behind their hands. The woman who claims fashion is what people associate her with couldn't even dress appropriately for the biggest fashion event of the year. Industry insiders are suggesting this wasn't just tone-deaf, it was deliberately calculated. She knew going to Paris, the city where Diana died, would generate headlines. She knew the fashion world would be watching. And still, she managed to fumble every single moment, from her awkward Zoolander walk to being caught on camera, appearing to laugh at a model who stumbled on the runway. But that was just the beginning of her complete unraveling. What came next in New York would expose just how deeply out of touch she's become. The trivial, the shallow, the utterly inappropriate, and it was all caught on camera for the world to see. The relentless chopping has become relentless self-destruction, and according to Kevin, she's only just getting started on this downward spiral. The Instagram video Meghan uploaded after her New York trip should have been a somber reflection on mental health and protecting children online. Instead, what the world witnessed was perhaps the most tone-deaf display of narcissism we've seen from Montecito yet, and that's saying something. Kevin O'Sullivan couldn't hide his disgust when describing the scene. Here's Meghan, supposedly attending an event about children who died from online harm, and what does she post? A glamorous behind-the-scenes montage of her walking through her closet, lingering on her endless rows of high heels like she's hosting a fashion reality show. The disconnect is staggering. Families are mourning dead babies, and Meghan's showing off her designer shoe collection. But the most inappropriate moment? She's literally laughing backstage, giggling and preening while preparing to receive an award at an event memorializing children who took their own lives. Kevin pointed out the absolute inappropriateness of this behavior. Everyone in that room was remembering devastating losses, processing unimaginable grief, and there's Meghan treating it like her personal red carpet moment. The video revealed something even more disturbing about the Montecito dynamics. Prince Harry, once the beloved royal who walked with presidents and commanded respect worldwide, is now relegated to standing uselessly in the background wearing sweatpants. Kinsey Schofield's observation was brutally accurate when she said he looked like a loser who needs to get a job. This is a man who's gone from military hero to Meghan's sweatpants-wearing prop, lurking behind her while she films her vanity projects. And speaking of vanity, the beauty capsules she kept showcasing weren't even recognizable luxury brands. Kevin and Kinsey couldn't identify them from Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom, leading to speculation she's desperately trying to tease some upcoming beauty line nobody asked for. She lingered on these mysterious products like they were precious gems, using the same capsule backstage, practically screaming for someone to notice and ask about them. Then there's the absolutely creepy moment where she films Gloria Steinem eating sushi without any apparent permission. The feminist icon is just trying to eat her dinner privately, and Meghan's secretly recording her like some invasive paparazzi. What exactly is the objective here? Using an 80-something-year-old woman as a prop for your Instagram content without consent. This video was supposed to highlight Meghan's alleged humanitarian work, her dedication to mental health causes. Instead, it exposed her as completely self-consumed and wholly committed to what Jamie Kern-Lima called the prove-it game, the very game Meghan claimed she'd forfeited. The real Meghan Markle was on full display here, and it wasn't pretty. The domestic goddess who supposedly makes jam and tends beehives has morphed into someone obsessed with high heels and mystery makeup, while her husband fades into the background in athletic wear. looking increasingly like furniture in his own life. The Paris trip exposed a new level of calculated cruelty that even Meghan's harshest critics didn't see coming. According to Kevin O'Sullivan, friends of both Harry and Meghan are absolutely shocked she went to Paris at all, given what she'd previously told them about never being able to visit the city where Diana tragically died. She'd spent years playing the supportive wife, claiming she could never go to Paris because Harry couldn't handle being in the place where his mother met her end. Friends recall her solemnly declaring it was off limits out of respect for her husband's trauma. Yet suddenly, there she was, swanning around Paris Fashion Week like the city held no significance whatsoever. But here's where it gets truly sinister. Sources suggest Meghan didn't just go to Paris despite the Diana connection. She went because of it. Kevin believes she deliberately chose Paris knowing it would generate massive headlines, knowing it would stir up memories of Diana's death, knowing it would guarantee her the attention she so desperately craves. The most shocking moment came when she was filmed in the back of a limousine with her feet up, casually recording herself as they drove past the very tunnel where Diana died. The callousness is breathtaking. While Harry remains traumatized by his mother's death, his wife is literally kicking back and filming Instagram content meters from where Diana took her last breath. Kevin didn't mince words about what this reveals. If Meghan truly did this deliberately, cashing in on the place where Diana died for publicity, what kind of person does that make her? How low can someone sink? The fact that she seemed to know exactly what she was doing makes it even more disturbing. When confronted about the controversy, Harry's response through friends was equally telling. He was reportedly furious that the media was using Diana's death as what he called a stick to beat Meghan with. But as Kevin pointed out, here's a wild idea. If you don't want your wife associated with controversy at Diana's death site, maybe don't let her go to Paris in the first place. The comments underneath these reports were devastating. People pointed out the staggering hypocrisy of Harry complaining about others using Diana's death when he and Meghan have been, quote, dining out on his mother's death for the last 5 years. Every Netflix special, every book deal, every interview somehow circles back to Diana's tragic end. Palace insiders whisper that this Paris stunt was Meghan's way of inserting herself into Diana's narrative once again. She can't be Diana, so she'll settle for being photographed in the city where Diana died, stirring up those associations, keeping herself linked to the tragedy that defined Harry's life. The betrayal Harry must feel, even if he won't admit it publicly, has to be crushing. His wife turned his deepest trauma into a publicity opportunity, and everyone could see exactly what she was doing. The fashion world's response to Meghan's desperate attempts to break into haute couture was nothing short of savage. Kevin O'Sullivan revealed the humiliating truth that the Balenciaga designer himself confirmed Meghan had actually invited herself to his show. She literally begged to attend, telling him she'd love to come, forcing him into the awkward position of having to accommodate someone nobody wanted there. But the real devastation came at the Balenciaga after-party. Dame Kristen Scott Thomas, the statuesque British actress who embodies everything elegant and refined, delivered what might be the most public snub Meghan has ever received. When Meghan tried to muscle into her conversation, desperately attempting to network her way into acceptance, Dame Kristen simply turned, gave a brief smile, then turned her back and continued her conversation as if Meghan didn't exist. The dismissal was so cold, so calculated, that witnesses say Meghan's humiliation was complete. Kevin pointed out the brutal reality. The fashion industry is incredibly snobbish, and you can't just waltz in expecting acceptance because you married a prince. These people respect hard work, genuine talent, and authentic style. Meghan showed up with none of those things, just desperation and that catastrophic Balenciaga outfit that fashion critics are still mocking. The comparison to Victoria Beckham is particularly devastating for Meghan. The Independent published a scathing article titled, "How Victoria Beckham Has Done What Meghan Markle Never Could." While Victoria commands respect from Anna Wintour downwards after 15 years of grinding work, getting up every morning, going to her studio, and actually creating designs, Meghan's Paris appearance only saw her epic fails go viral. Her Zoolander walk became instant meme material. Fashion insiders couldn't believe she appeared to laugh when a model stumbled on the runway, breaking the cardinal rule of fashion show etiquette. Even if you'd laugh privately, you never ever do it at a show. It's simply not done. But Meghan, desperate to fit in, couldn't even master basic fashion world protocol. The fashion elite saw right through her intentions. This wasn't about appreciating design or supporting creativity. This was about trying to establish credibility for her meeting with Chloe Malley, the American Vogue editor. Meghan thought showing up at Paris Fashion Week would somehow transform her into a fashion authority worthy of Vogue coverage. Instead, she proved exactly why she doesn't belong. Kevin's assessment was damning. Meghan Markle simply isn't a Vogue person. She's too tacky, lacks innate style, and being married to old ginger nuts certainly won't help her fashion credentials. The woman who claims people associate her with fashion couldn't even dress appropriately for Fashion Week. Every memorable outfit anyone can name comes from her time as a working royal, nothing since leaving the family that gave her everything. The fashion world has spoken with resounding clarity. Meghan Markle is not welcome. The Daily Mail dropped a bombshell that should have been deeply embarrassing for anyone with self-awareness. According to sources close to Meghan, she is literally lost right now because the whole jam-making business did not work out the way she thought it would. The exact quote from her friend was devastating in its simplicity. No one has seen the sales figures, but they don't think they're good. Kevin O'Sullivan couldn't contain his disbelief at the spectacular failure of American Riviera Orchard. The $9 marmalade has earned the humiliating distinction of being the first ever ARO product that hasn't sold out within minutes. Despite Instagram posts desperately describing it as golden and fragrant with a lively zest that lingers and refined sweetness, nobody's buying Meghan's overpriced preserves. The numbers tell a brutal story. $14 for cookie dough, $10 for basic jam, $9 for marmalade that sits unsold while Meghan frantically posts about its refined sweetness. Who exactly did she think would pay these astronomical prices for mundane products just because her name was slapped on the label? But here's where it gets truly pathetic. When asked about the origin story of her jam business at a recent event, Meghan didn't share some heartfelt tale about discovering her passion during lockdown or connecting with her garden. Instead, she admitted it was Netflix's idea. Netflix told her this is what she should do. That's not an entrepreneur with vision. That's someone desperately taking directions from streaming executives who probably just wanted content. Kevin's assessment was brutally accurate. The entire business premise is fundamentally flawed because it's based on selling products through her alleged popularity. But if you're not actually popular, if people actively dislike you, why would they buy your overpriced jam? The foundation is built on sand, and everything is crumbling exactly as predicted. Sources say Meghan was genuinely shocked the products didn't fly off the shelves. She apparently believed her name alone would generate billions in sales. How delusional do you have to be to think you can become a billionaire selling $10 jam? The woman who couldn't even make her Spotify podcast work thought she'd conquer the preserves market. The Friends revelation that Meghan is literally lost speaks volumes about her current mental state. She genuinely thought slapping her name on basic pantry items would generate massive wealth. Instead, she's sitting on inventory nobody wants, while the fashion world rejects her and her husband lurks in sweatpants in the background. Industry insiders suggest this isn't just about jam. It's about a woman who fundamentally misunderstands her own brand value. She prices products like she's Martha Stewart or Oprah, but she has neither the credibility nor the goodwill those women built over decades. She's trying to skip straight to empire without doing any actual work. The marmalade that won't sell has become a perfect metaphor for everything wrong with Meghan's approach to business and life. The Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit invitation should have been Meghan's triumphant return to serious business circles. Instead, it became another spectacular display of delusion when she found herself sharing the stage with Kamala Harris as supposed next-level influencers. Kevin O'Sullivan couldn't hide his incredulity at the pairing. Two women whose influence seems to be plummeting faster than their approval ratings, desperately clinging to relevance on the same stage. The official Fortune blurb was telling in its framing. They described Meghan as a highly scrutinized founder, essentially acknowledging her perpetual victim narrative before she even opened her mouth. Kevin pointed out the absurdity of complaining about scrutiny when you've built your entire celebrity brand on public attention. That's literally the business model, yet she wants sympathy for the very thing she sought out. When Fortune asked how she plans to leverage her significant influence to build a successful, long-lasting business empire, insiders were already cringing in anticipation. Kinsey Schofield predicted it would be a hot mess express of word salad, California hippie lingo, and circular non-answers. The woman never answers straightforward questions, instead dancing around with phrases about anchoring in herself and finding her truth. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that Meghan was discussing building an enduring brand while American Riviera Orchard was literally collapsing in real time. She's sitting on stage talking about business empires while her $9 marmalade gathers dust on shelves and her friend admits to the Daily Mail that she's completely lost. Kevin's analysis was particularly cutting about her billion-dollar obsession. Meghan apparently remains convinced she's destined to be a billionaire. But through what exactly? She can't commit to anything long enough to build value. The TIG was abandoned. Archetypes was cancelled. Her Netflix cooking show morphed into polo documentation nobody asked for. Now jam is failing. What empire is she building except one of spectacular failures? The blessing and curse narrative she pushed about having name recognition was equally delusional. Yes, people know who she is, but they know her as the woman who made the Queen's final years miserable, who accused the royal family of racism, who turned Prince Harry into a sweatpants-wearing shadow of himself. That's not the kind of recognition that sells products. Industry insiders at the summit were reportedly bemused by her presence. These are serious businesswomen who've built actual companies through decades of grinding work. Then there's Meghan, whose biggest business achievement is getting Netflix to suggest she should make jam. The contrast was painful to observe. The summit appearance confirmed what Kevin has been saying all along. Every business venture fails because the fundamental premise is wrong. She thinks people will buy products because they love her, but the brutal reality she can't face is that people don't love her. They see through the victim narrative, the calculated controversies, the desperate pivots from jam to fashion to whatever she'll announce next week in her frantic search for relevance and billions that will never materialize. The transformation of Prince Harry from decorated military officer to Meghan's background prop in sweatpants might be the most tragic subplot in this whole saga. Kevin O'Sullivan didn't hold back when describing what Harry's become, standing uselessly behind his wife while she films her vanity projects, looking like furniture in his own life. Kinsey Schofield's observation was brutally honest when she noted Harry's body is starting to give Prince Andrew vibes. The once fit soldier who competed in the Invictus Games now lurks in athletic wear, looking increasingly soft around the middle, like someone who's given up. When she saw him on the red carpet, all she could think was that he's morphing into his older relatives, the ones he used to mock. But it's the sweatpants that tell the real story. This is a man who once stood shoulder to shoulder with his brother in military dress uniforms, who commanded respect at state occasions, who represented the crown with dignity. Now, he's been reduced to standing around in leisure wear while his wife showcases her shoe collection for Instagram. The symbolism is devastating. Kevin exposed the harsh reality of their California existence. These are the types of people who sit around talking about their big plans, how they've written scripts Paramount is interested in, how they're developing apps that'll make them billionaires next week. Everyone in LA has a scheme. Everyone's about to hit it big, but most are just lazy grifters living off past glory and future promises that never materialize. The comparison to unemployed actors is particularly cutting. Harry's essentially collecting metaphorical unemployment between his sparse charity appearances, sitting at home in Montecito while Meghan frantically pivots from one failed venture to another. He got his massive Netflix and Spotify paydays, and now what? He's become exactly what Kevin calls a Hollywood grifter, all talk and no substance. Even worse is how Meghan treats him in these videos. He's literally pushed to the background, a silent extra in her one-woman show. The prince, who was once the star of every room he entered, is now barely visible, hovering behind his wife like hired security in shapeless athletic wear. When he does dress up, Kevin notes he puts on chinos and polo shirts, the uniform of wealthy mediocrity. Sources suggest Harry spends most of his time in those sweatpants because he has nowhere to go, nothing meaningful to do. While Meghan races around pretending to be a businesswoman, Harry's reduced to waiting for her next scheme to fail, her next pivot to require his reluctant participation. He's not building anything, not contributing anything, just existing in overpriced athletic wear in their 16-bathroom mansion. The man who once had purpose, who served his country, who created the Invictus Games, has become a cautionary tale about what happens when you abandon everything for someone who sees you as an accessory to their ambitions rather than an equal partner. The pattern is so consistent it's become predictable, and Kevin O'Sullivan laid it out with devastating clarity. Meghan Markle doesn't just leave things, she abandons them the moment they require real commitment or stop serving her immediate purposes. The list of casualties in her wake tells a story of someone incapable of seeing anything through to completion. First came the Tig, her lifestyle blog that she abruptly shuttered when Harry entered the picture. Then the British royal family, abandoned after less than 2 years of working membership. Archetypes, her Spotify podcast canceled after 1 season of underwhelming content. Her Netflix cooking show morphed into something completely different. Now American Riviera Orchard appears to be heading toward the same graveyard of Meghan's abandoned ventures. But it's not just projects she quits, it's people. Kevin detailed the ruthless pattern of how she discards human beings like used tissues. Her father, Thomas Markle, cut off completely in 2018 just before her wedding. Her half-siblings banished to what Kevin calls familial Siberia with no chance of return. And perhaps most tellingly, Jessica Mulroney, her supposed best friend whose children were in her wedding, dropped instantly when controversy arose. The Mulroney situation particularly reveals Meghan's true nature. This woman who knew all Meghan's secrets, who introduced her to Toronto society, who was by her side through the royal romance, was severed from Meghan's life without a backward glance the moment she became inconvenient. 5 years of intimate friendship meant nothing when Jessica became a liability. Kinsey Schofield raised the terrifying question that must haunt Harry's quiet moments. If Meghan can quit everything and everyone so easily, what makes him think he's immune? She's shown repeatedly that nothing and no one is permanent in her life, except her ambition. When people or projects stop serving her purposes, they're discarded without sentiment. The pattern suggests someone who cannot handle the mundane middle of anything. She loves the excitement of beginnings, the rush of new ventures, the attention of fresh starts. But when things require sustained effort, when the glamour fades and real work begins, when success demands grinding consistency rather than grand gestures, Meghan simply walks away. Kevin pointed out that successful people in fashion, business, or media share one trait Meghan lacks completely: they show up every day. Victoria Beckham spent 15 years going to her studio daily, building her brand stitch by stitch. Martha Stewart built an empire through decades of consistent work, but Meghan wants to skip straight to billionaire status without the boring bits in between. Even her commitment to causes seems performative and temporary. The mental health advocacy, the children's online safety work, the women's empowerment messaging, all get abandoned the moment something shinier appears. She's a serial quitter dressed up as a serial entrepreneur, and the wreckage of discontinued projects and discarded relationships proves that painful truth. Kevin O'Sullivan delivered his most devastating diagnosis yet when he identified the fundamental flaw that explains everything wrong with Meghan Markle. She lacks grace. Not just a little bit, not just sometimes, but completely and utterly devoid of the quality that defines true royalty and frankly basic human decency. The contrast with the actual royal family couldn't be more stark. Members of the British royal family, despite constant attacks, media scrutiny, and personal challenges, maintain an inherent grace that comes from rising above everything. They don't respond to every slight, don't defend every criticism, don't explain every decision. The Queen's famous motto was never complain, never explain, and it served the monarchy for 70 years of dignified service. But Meghan, she spends her entire existence complaining and explaining. Every single thing that happens requires her response, whether directly or through People magazine and Page 6 briefings. Someone criticizes her jam prices, there's a source defending it. Questions about Paris, friends suddenly speak to media. She cannot let anything go, cannot rise above anything, cannot demonstrate even a moment of the grace that real royalty embodies. Kevin pointed out that Harry has lost this grace too, infected by Meghan's need to respond to everything. The prince, who once carried himself with dignity, has become what Kevin calls a two-bit celebrity who cries and complains at every opportunity. His deranged interviews claiming everyone's trying to kill him, his constant victimhood narrative, his inability to accept any responsibility. It all lacks the fundamental grace his family maintains despite everything. The victim card they constantly play from their 16-bathroom Montecito mansion is perhaps the most graceless aspect of all. They fly private jets everywhere, live in luxury most people can't imagine, have millions in the bank from Netflix and Spotify deals, yet still want sympathy for how hard their lives are. As Kevin says, come on, the sheer gracelessness of complaining about your problems while living that lifestyle is staggering. But here's the ultimate lack of grace that Kinsey Schofield identified. Meghan made the final years of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's lives a living hell. While they were in their 90s dealing with health issues and a global pandemic, Meghan was launching public attacks through Oprah, spreading racism accusations, creating drama and division in their final chapter. The Queen and Prince Philip deserved peaceful final years after decades of service, and instead they got Meghan's relentless attacks. The Queen maintained her grace even then, responding to outrageous accusations with dignity and restraint. But Meghan? She couldn't even allow an elderly monarch to pass peacefully without drama. She tormented them until the end. And as Kinsey pointed out, people are unforgiving about that, rightly so. This fundamental absence of grace explains why every venture fails, why the fashion world rejects her, why businesses won't succeed. Grace isn't just about manners or protocol, it's about character, dignity, and understanding your place in the larger narrative. Meghan has none of it. Kevin O'Sullivan's final assessment cut through all the noise, all the excuses, all the carefully crafted narratives to deliver the brutal truth Meghan Markle cannot face. Every single business venture fails for one simple, devastating reason. People don't like her. Not her jam, not her fashion sense, not her podcasts, not her documentaries. They don't like her. The numbers don't lie. $9 marmalade sitting unsold. Spotify deal canceled after one underwhelming season. Netflix cooking show morphed beyond recognition. Fashion designers confirming she invited herself to their shows. The evidence is overwhelming, yet Meghan continues operating under the delusion that she's beloved, that her name carries positive value, that people will pay premium prices just to be associated with her brand. Kevin explained the fundamental math that Meghan refuses to calculate. You cannot build a celebrity brand on popularity you don't possess. You cannot sell lifestyle products to people who reject your lifestyle. You cannot become a billionaire when the market actively avoids anything with your name attached. The entire business model is built on a lie she tells herself. that she's a beloved figure who just needs the right product to unlock massive wealth. But here's what makes it even worse. Harry and Meghan had everything. They had the royal platform, global recognition, genuine goodwill from millions who wanted them to succeed. They could have built something meaningful, something lasting, something that actually helped people while securing their own futures. Instead, they chose the cheapest, quickest cash grabs available. Kevin and Kinsey identified the exact moment they destroyed their value. When they took the massive checks from Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House in exchange for trashing the royal family, they didn't just burn bridges, they torched their entire brand. They went from having the prestige of royalty to being gossip-peddling celebrities. They cheapened themselves for easy money, and now nobody wants to pay premium prices for damaged goods. The comparison to Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's legacy is devastating. These were people who served for decades, who built something that mattered, who left the world better than they found it. They're important figures in human history. And Meghan? She'll be remembered, if at all, as the woman who slithered in like a snake trying to tear apart an institution that stood for centuries. Kevin's mic drop moment was perfect. Meghan lacks grace, she lacks work ethic, she lacks authenticity, she lacks talent, and most importantly, she lacks the self-awareness to recognize any of these deficits. She'll keep pivoting, keep failing, keep blaming everyone but herself for ventures that were doomed from conception. The relentless chopping of vegetables has become the relentless chopping up of opportunities, relationships, and any chance of redemption, until she faces the truth that Kevin O'Sullivan so brutally laid bare that people simply don't like her and won't buy what she's selling. She'll remain forever lost, desperately flailing in Montecito while the world moves on without her.